Are you more of a performance type person, or are you more of a lifestyle type person? I believe more than ever now, we are moving into a world where it's so important to tune into the type of person you are and build a business that supports that. It's important to understand your personality type, when you have the most energy during the day, what level of stress you can tolerate, because ultimately we build businesses because we want something. Like, business is just the vehicle. Try not to get too sucked into what everybody else is doing externally to be quote unquote successful. If you really are trying to grow your business, there are some fundamental things that you have to do. I think it's important that we really understand. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Creative Courage podcast. A couple of things I want to talk about today, and I'm going to keep this one a little bit loose and I'm going to kind of ad-lib a little bit. I've been getting a bit bored of these kind of really scripted videos and these scripted podcasts. I feel like every time I go onto YouTube, I come across one of these videos that's like how to get 10 clients in the next 90 days. And I know I'm definitely guilty of that kind of content because it gets views, and I just feel a little bit burnt out by it. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about today. But more importantly, I want to talk about your personality and creativity and performance and why those things are important to know and pay attention to when you are running your business or even just building something in general. So I was having a conversation with my friend the other day. We were talking about this idea that she's kind of got to this point in her career where she feels like it's a little bit boring, it's a little bit monotonous. She doesn't really feel like she's being challenged. And we got onto the subject of doing things over and over again. And I said to her, what I've noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, people that are extremely successful kind of financially, but also in terms of getting profile and, you know, your typical things that you would associate with like success externally, is that they seem to be the kind of people that can tolerate doing a lot of the same things over and over again. And they also seem to be this kind of people that can tolerate what I would call quite extreme environments. So I'll give you some really tangible examples. Like, I know people like Chris Do, people like Daniel Priestley quite well. I've spent a lot of time with them, and I would consider them as very successful entrepreneurs. Now, Chris is a good example because Chris can go with basically no sleep. He could have like 3 or 4 hours sleep a night, and he could get up and do a keynote and be very coherent and actually run like a really powerful workshop. And although Chris isn't the kind of person who wants to do the same thing over and over again, he is the kind of person who is willing to put in the work to do things that I think most people wouldn't do. And I include myself in that category. And so when we're thinking about success and when we're thinking about kind of getting to that next level, I think it's quite useful, at least for me, so I'm kind of hoping it might be useful for you, to think about people in terms of like different categories and also different stages. So when I look at people like, let's use Daniel Priestley as an example, because Daniel Priestley is a very successful entrepreneur and has a long track record of building very successful businesses, multiple 7-figure businesses. When he was 21, he created one of the fastest growing startups in Australia. And since I've known him for almost 10 years now, it kind of almost feels like most things he touches turn to gold. And so let's kind of take him as an example. Daniel actually talks about these two kinds of businesses. He talks about boutique lifestyle businesses, which are typically kind of between 3 and 12 people, and their revenue is somewhere between 300,000 and 1.2 million. They're lean, dynamic teams, and the business is very much built around the founder's lifestyle. Then on the other hand, you have these performance businesses, which are much bigger teams, but ultimately they require sort of leadership teams and they have a different structure. And you're getting up to maybe like between 20 and 50 employees. Now, most people that I meet, most creatives that I speak to, they ultimately want a lifestyle business in that specific context. But I think we can also apply these ideas or these concepts to our personality. Like, are you more of a performance type person? Or are you more of a lifestyle type person? For example, when you were at school, were you somebody who was in all of the top sports teams and you were kind of like obsessed with things? Or was there like one particular thing? Maybe it wasn't sport. Maybe it was computers and like the internet, or maybe it was art or something like you were just really obsessed with it and you'd spend hours and hours and hours doing it. Or were you the kind of person that liked to do a lot of everything? So for me, for example, I was the kind of person who I played a bit of sports. I was okay at sports. I was in some A teams. I was in some B teams. I was very interested in kind of film and photography. I also skateboarded. I did lots of different things quite averagely, to be honest, right? And I still find myself in that way of being now. And so it kind of made me start thinking, like, is this a personality thing or is it just a strategy thing? So going back to this idea of kind of lifestyle versus performance, I think it's important to think about, are you the kind of person that would build a performance business because you can get really obsessed with one thing and you are okay kind of doing it over and over again, or you have that kind of level of obsession and detail where you're going to put in those hours, you're going to kind of really, really do the hard yards, and you can do that over and over again and it gives you energy, versus someone like myself who, once I get to a certain point, really getting into the weeds and kind of getting into the detail and being kind of obsessed over the little things just isn't really me. I'm very much of a big picture thinker. I'm great at starting things. I have 1,000 new ideas a day. I believe I'm quite good at taking complex ideas and making them simple and easy to understand. I believe I'm quite good at articulating things in ways that other people haven't necessarily been able to articulate them. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because I'm kind of at a season in my life where I feel like I've done the hard yards. Like, I've been coaching for almost 10 years now. And prior to that, I was running a marketing agency and I was doing a little bit of consulting, but I was predominantly doing like a done for you service. And I've been coaching now for a decade, and I feel like I've gone really deep in this field and I've become pretty obsessed with certain things. But I also feel like it's starting to burn me out a little bit. And I feel like I'm at a season in my life right now where I want to switch up and do something a bit different. Now, it's not going to be something totally different. It's not going to be like, I'm never going to coach again, or I'm not going to work with creatives, but it needs to be something where I feel like I'm getting the variety and I feel like I can do things that excite me and challenge me and not always just do the same thing and kind of be obsessed with it. So I told you this was going to be a bit of a ramble, but I think it's really important. I think it's really important to talk about this because whenever I go on YouTube or whenever I look at Instagram, and I don't know if it's just because it's my algorithm or whatever, it's always about these people just working really hard and putting in the graft and staying up until 1 a.m. And, you know, I was watching some of the Behind the Diary with Stephen Bartlett. And when I look at someone like Stephen Bartlett, he's about the same age as me. He's a little bit younger, I think. But I just think like I couldn't do what he does, like his schedule and the pressure and the different companies. Like, I just don't feel like I'm built that way. And I also feel like my nervous system couldn't take that. Like, recently I came across this term, highly sensitive person. And I'm not a big fan of labels. Like, I know ADHD is a thing, and I know there's all these different kind of labels for these sensitivities and neurodivergencies and all of these things. I'm not a big fan of labels in general, but this one did resonate with me. And it was about people that have kind of oversensitive nervous systems, basically. And so external stimuli like sound, like I literally just paused the recording to this podcast because there's somebody outside, like with kids screaming, and, you know, it was distracting me. So I think I've begun to realize over the last few years that it isn't as simple as here is the strategy, here is the playbook for growing a successful business, and these are the things that you have to do. I believe more than ever now, we are moving into a world where it's so important to tune into the type of person you are and build a business that supports that. So for me, I love an afternoon nap. And sometimes if I've had a lot of coaching calls or I've been doing things, like I need a nap, I need to lie down. And I'm also aware that right now I've got some health challenges going on, like with my gut microbiome and things, and some vitamin deficiencies, which make me more tired. So hopefully when I get that sorted, I will be able to have, I guess, more stamina and go for longer and not have like the afternoon crashes and things like that. But I do think it's important to know who you are. Like, I know I don't tolerate stress well. Like if I have stress in my life for a prolonged period, it burns me out pretty easily. So right now, my number one priority is optimizing my life for minimal stress and to be able to rest and recover when I need to. Having said that, I talked about seasons at the beginning, right? I said seasons and personality types, and they're kind of like the two themes, I guess, of today's podcast. The season you're in also dictates this. I'm in a season where I've kind of grown and grown and grown, and then recently over the last 2 years kind of plateaued because I've been a bit unsure about where I want to take my business. I've started to feel the stresses and strains of working continuously and coaching people and taking on other people's problems. So it does also depend on what season you're in. So I know there's going to be people listening to this right now who just feel like they need more clients and maybe are in a season where they're trying to grow their business. So if you really are trying to grow your business, there are some fundamental things that you have to do, and there is kind of no avoiding that, especially if it's you or you and a small team, a handful of people. Like, you have to make sales. You have to generate interest in what you do. So going, I need a nap this afternoon, and then expecting your business to get to 7 figures probably is pretty unrealistic. So I just want to put that in as a caveat. But I also think it's important to understand your personality type, when you have the most energy during the day, what level of stress you can tolerate, what you get your energy from, what takes your energy away. Because ultimately, what's the point of doing all of this? Right? We build businesses because we want something. Like, business is just the vehicle. We want more freedom. We want the ability to be able to pick our kids up from school. We want to be able to travel, right? We want more potential to have more impact. Like, I was speaking to one of my clients the other day, and he was talking about how his mission really is to create these kind of work environments that allow people to work on things that really bring them true fulfillment and also give them financial security. And that's what drives him to build a business with a team rather than him just doing that thing on his own, right? So we want to feel like the work we're doing is making a difference. We want to feel like the business that we are building is making a difference. And so when I think about all these people, like, I watched the Behind the Diary, I think it's called, the YouTube channel, where he interviewed Mr. Beast. And he was saying he estimates Mr. Beast is worth something like $3 billion or something, right? Now, I don't know if that's true, but let's just say it's even, nowhere near to that, and it's a few hundred million. Well, what do you do at that point? Like, I think Mr. Beast is great in the sense of the impact that he's made with his work and the lives he changes with, like, the Beast games and all of that kind of stuff, right? I think it's a positive thing. But when you look at it purely from a financial perspective, it's like, what are you going to do with 300 million? Like, unless you're like him, where you give it away and you actually create things, it kind of becomes insignificant, because there is a level that we all have, which is basically financial freedom, where you don't have to think about money. Basically, you just walk into a shop and you buy something and you don't think, oh God, how much was that? Within reason, right? But that number for most people is a lot lower than you think. So there was a big study as well a while ago, I think, that found that if you earn over like $100,000 or $150,000, you basically, your level of happiness is no different to somebody that has like multi-millions. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have aspirations to grow multiple seven-figure businesses or even have that personal wealth for yourself. What I'm saying is, work for work's sake, or work to get you somewhere in the end, is a very dangerous trap. And unless you just love the process of that. Like, I genuinely believe Daniel Priestley loves the process of building companies and doing cool stuff. Like, whenever I speak to him, he's not stressed out like, oh God, one day I'm going to do this. In fact, I said to him on a ski lift a few months ago, when you sell Score App, which is one of the companies he has right now, what will you do? And I think it's valued at maybe like 100 million, or even if he gets like, multiple millions for it, what will you do? And he was like, well, I'll work with Stephen, who's his co-founder, to go start the next one and figure out what the next software company is that we're going to build, just because he loves doing that, right? He loves the process. So I think it's really important. The whole kind of overall message, I guess, I've got with today's episode is try not to get too sucked into what everybody else is doing externally to be quote unquote successful, and really think about what success means to you and what your ideal lifestyle looks like. And it might not be that far away from what you've already got. And I think it's important. I think it's important that we really understand, what are we trying to achieve? What is it we really want in our lives? And getting specific about that. Because people say things like more money. Well, here's an extra $20. Now you have more money, right? What do you want specifically financially? Do you want to pay off your mortgage by X date or whatever? Okay, well, what would that allow you to really do? Like, fast forward, be in that moment, be in that place where you've achieved those goals. What have you got then that you don't have now? Is it security? Okay, well, what else does security mean to you? Now, I could go off on a whole different tangent about values and all of that kind of stuff, but I want to keep this episode fairly concise, and I want you to have some key takeaways that you can actually take from this podcast as principles and view your life through that filter. And so predominantly, the big takeaway is personality types and seasons. Sitting back and asking yourself, what kind of person am I? What season of my life am I in? I am in a growth season. I'm in a recovery season. Like, where are you right now? And what does my day-to-day need to look like in order for me to be happy? And really taking some time to actually sit down, write that down on a piece of paper. Like, am I the kind of person that does get obsessed with things? Or am I the kind of person that needs a lot of variety in my life? Am I somebody that is really good at ideas, but is really poor with the execution? These things I think are really important to know about yourself. There's obviously personality tests and things that you can do if you want to go really deep, but I don't think you need to do that. I think you just need to be honest with yourself, take some time to kind of get in touch with who you really are, separate from all that noise, separate from what everybody tells you, and really tune in to what your life needs to look like in order for you to be, I guess, the best version of yourself, right? And to actually have the things that you want. So that's today's solo episode of the Creative Courage podcast. I hope you found it valuable. I'm trying to, I guess, bring a little bit more personality into these solo episodes so it's not formulaic and clear cut. Let me know what you think. If you listen to this, I get some wonderful messages on LinkedIn, so I appreciate you if you've listened to these episodes and you reached out to me on LinkedIn. It does mean a lot when someone connects with me and says, hey, this podcast has had a real positive impact, or I like this about it, or I wish you would do more of this. It's really helpful for me, because ultimately one of the reasons I created this is because I want to have more impact. I want to be able to reach more people. I want to be able to shape people's thinking and help them live a more creative life and a more creatively courageous life. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You've been listening to the Creative Courage podcast. My name is Matt Essen.